Chicago, April 1925. The most dangerous man in America was sitting on the floor of his study, playing with toy soldiers. Al Capone, 36 years old, controlled bootlegging operations worth millions, commanded over 700 men who'd kill on his word, and had more blood on his hands than most could imagine. Politicians feared him. Rivals avoided him. The newspapers called him public enemy number one, but right now, none of that existed. Right now, he was just a father watching his 7-year-old son arrange tiny metal figures across an imported Persian rug. "Papa, you be the general," Sonny said. His voice slightly slurred the way children with hearing loss often speak, the consonants soft and uncertain. He pushed 3 soldiers toward his father with small, careful hands, hands that would never hold a gun, hands that Capone had. Promised would never know violence. Capone smiled, the kind of smile that never appeared in newspapers or courtrooms, the kind reserved only for this room, this moment, this boy. He took the soldiers and lined them up with exaggerated military precision. "What are we fighting for, soldier?" Sonny thought seriously, his small face scrunched in concentration the way it did when his tutor asked him difficult questions. Then his expression brightened and he grinned with the uncomplicated joy of childhood. Ice cream, and Al Capone, the man who'd personally ordered the execution of 17 people, who'd built an empire on violence and intimidation, who'd once beaten a man to death with a baseball bat for disrespecting him. Al Capone laughed. A real laugh, the kind that came from somewhere deep and genuine, untouched by the darkness that lived in. "The rest of his life, ice cream it is," he said, moving his tiny metal soldiers forward. "The most important war ever fought." That was the thing about Sonny. He made his father human again. Made him remember there was more to life than territory and power and fear. Made him believe, just for these stolen moments, that he could be something other than what the world had made him. Albert Francis Capone, Sonny, had been born with complications. An infection during delivery left him partially deaf in both ears, nearly completely deaf in his left. The doctors had been blunt. He'd never speak normally, never attend regular school, never live what they called a normal life. They'd suggested institutions, special facilities, places where children like that were sent. Capone had thrown them out of his office. Instead, he'd spent a fortune. More money than most people would see in a lifetime, on specialists, on experimental treatments, on private tutors who specialized in teaching deaf children. He'd had the house modified with lights that flashed when someone knocked on doors, had hired a full-time tutor who knew sign language, had learned to speak slower and clearer so his son could read his lips, and Sonny was thriving. He attended a private school for children with special needs, one Capone had personally funded when he couldn't find one that met his standards. He had friends who accepted him, teachers who believed in him, a life that was as close to normal as Capone's money and power could make it. He was happy, he was safe, he was loved, and nothing in this world or the next mattered more to Al Capone than keeping that happiness intact. He would burn Chicago to the ground. Before he let anyone hurt his son, he would start wars, destroy empires, sacrifice everything he'd built. He just didn't know he'd have to prove it so soon. Me Capone appeared in the doorway, her expression careful and controlled. When me looked like that, something was wrong. "Al," she said quietly, "we need to talk." He stood up, brushing off his trousers. "Sonny, keep setting up. I'll be right back." In the hallway, me closed the door. For a moment, she just looked at him. Then she said the words that would change everything. "Someone approached Sonny at school today." The air went cold. Capone's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. "Who?" "A man, young, maybe 25. He walked up to Sonny during recess, told him to give his father a message." Me's hands shook as she pulled out a folded paper. Capone unfolded it slowly. The handwriting was crude, but the message was clear. "We can get to your boy any time we want. Back off the north side, or next time we won't just talk. B.M. Bugs Moran, the North Side Gang." Capone read it 3 times. Then he carefully folded it and placed it in his pocket. His face was expressionless, but me knew what that expression meant. "Al, did they touch him?" "No." "The teacher got there, did they scare him?" Me hesitated. "He asked me why the man was angry at you. He wanted to know if he did something wrong." That broke something inside Al Capone, not the threat, but the image of his 7-year-old son who couldn't hear half of what people said, standing in a playground wondering if he'd done something wrong. "Get Sonny ready," Capone said. Quietly, "You're both going to Wisconsin. Tonight, Al, tonight. Frank will arrange everything. You'll have guards. You won't leave the property until I say it's safe." "What are you going to do?" Capone didn't answer. He walked toward his office, footsteps echoing down the marble hallway, because the man walking down that hallway wasn't the businessman, the philanthropist. That man had just died. What remained was something forged in Brooklyn streets, something that understood only one language: violence. Capone's office overlooked Lake Michigan. He picked up the phone and dialed. Frank Nitti answered on the second ring. Yeah, get everyone to the Lexington, now. Every captain, every lieutenant, every man who can hold a gun. 1 hour. Nitti knew better than to ask questions. Done. Capone opened his desk drawer and pulled out a Colt .38. He checked the cylinder, placed it on the desk, and stared at the photograph there. Sonny, age 5, sitting on a pony, laughing. The smile of a child who didn't know yet how cruel the world could be. 18 hours, that was all the time Bugs Moran had left. The Lexington Hotel, 10:00 p.m. The fourth-floor conference room was packed with every major figure in the Chicago outfit: Frank Nitti, Jake Guzik, Tony Accardo, Murray Humphreys. All silent, waiting. Capone walked in at exactly 10, placed the note on the table, and stood there. Read it. It went around the table. Each man's face hardened as they understood. When it came back, Capone tore it into pieces. They threatened my son, my 7-year-old son, at his school, during recess. Absolute silence. Moran thinks he can get to me through my family. Capone's voice never rose. He's wrong. I want every North Side operation shut down. Every speakeasy, every gambling house, every warehouse. Supply lines cut. Protection rackets dismantled. Political connections severed. And I want Bugs Moran brought to me. Alive. Al, Jake Guzik said carefully. That's going to start a war. We're already at war. They started it when they walked up to my son. I'm finishing it. Tony Accardo leaned forward. The entire North Side operation. In 18 hours. I want it done by dawn. The men looked at each other. What Capone was describing was insane, but when they looked at his face, they understood. This wasn't business. This was a father protecting his child, and there was no force on earth more dangerous than that. What about the police? Murray Humphreys asked. I'll handle the police. You focus on Moran's operations. I don't care how much it costs. I don't care who gets upset. I want them to wake up tomorrow and realize they have nothing left. Frank Nitti stood up. Where do we start? Capone smiled, not a pleasant smile, the smile of a predator about to hunt. The Green Mill, Moran's favorite speakeasy. I want it closed by midnight. The Green Mill sat on North Broadway, deep in enemy territory. Moran's crown jewel, a jazz club pulling in thousands a week. Politicians drank there. Judges, it was supposed to be untouchable. At 11:30 p.m., Frank Nitti walked in with 20 men. The jazz band stopped. Dancers froze. Everyone recognized Frank Nitti. He pulled out a revolver and fired at the ceiling. People screamed, ran for exits. Everyone out. 60 seconds. The place emptied in 45. Then they destroyed everything. Every bottle smashed. Tables overturned. Piano pushed off its platform. They blew the safe open. 50,000 in cash, account books showing every payoff. Then they set it all on fire. By midnight, the Green Mill was an inferno. Fire trucks arrived, but hydrants mysteriously didn't work. Police pulled up, took one look at the men watching from across the street, and drove away. And that was just the beginning. Through the night, Capone's organization moved like a well-oiled machine of destruction. 3 North Side warehouses raided simultaneously. Hundreds of thousands in bootleg whiskey taken or destroyed. Entire operations dismantled in minutes. 4 speakeasies closed permanently, their owners receiving polite visits explaining that their protection payments were no longer honored, that if they wanted to stay in business, they should talk to Mr. Capone. Most made that phone call before sunrise. A judge who'd been on Moran's payroll for 6 years woke up to an envelope on his doorstep containing photographs he'd have paid anything to keep private. He announced his retirement by breakfast. The police captain protecting North Side operations found his bank account frozen, his mortgage suddenly due, his wife receiving flowers with a card that said only, "Lovely family." He understood the message. By dawn, he was working for Capone. And through it all, Al Capone sat in his office at the Lexington Hotel, phone in one hand, cigar in the other, making calls and giving orders with the calm precision of a general coordinating a military campaign. He didn't sleep, didn't eat, just systematically dismantled everything Bugs Moran had built over a decade, operation by operation, ally by ally, brick by brick. Every hour, someone came in with a report. The Green Mill was gone. The warehouses were empty. Another speakeasy had switched sides. Another politician had withdrawn support. Another piece of Morin's empire had crumbled to dust, and Capone just nodded, lit another cigar, and moved to the next target. Because that's what happened when you threatened Al Capone's son. You didn't just face a mobster. You faced a father who would burn the world down to keep his child safe. At 5:47 a.m., Frank Nitti walked into Capone's office, exhausted, suit wrinkled, cut above his eyebrow. It's done. The green mill's gone, warehouses empty, speakeasies closed or switched. There. Political and police protection is gone. We hit their loan sharking operations too. Bugs Morin woke up this morning controlling nothing. Capone nodded, and Morin himself, in hiding, north side, were still looking. Find him, I want to have a conversation. Bugs Morin was found at 2:00 p.m. hiding in a tenement basement. He was brought to a south side warehouse, hands tied, face bloody. Capone was waiting. The warehouse was empty except for 2 chairs. Capone sat in one. His men pushed Morin into the other. They looked at each other. Bugs Morin, who'd controlled half of Chicago's illegal alcohol trade, and Al Capone, whose empire had just swallowed Morin's whole in less than a day. You made a mistake, Capone said quietly. Morin spat blood. Go to hell. Capone reached into his pocket and pulled out the photograph from his desk. Sonny on the pony, smiling. This is my son. His name is Sonny. He's 7. He can't hear well because of an infection when he was born. He likes toy soldiers and ice cream. He wants to be a baseball player. He placed the photograph between them. You sent a man to threaten him at his school. You thought that would make me back off. He stood slowly, but you scared him. You made my son think he did something wrong. You made him afraid to go to school. You made his mother cry. You made me choose between being a businessman and being a father. Your kid's fine, Morin muttered. We didn't touch him. Capone's voice went cold. Here's what's going to happen. You're leaving Chicago tonight. You're taking whatever's left of your organization and disappearing. Because if I see you again, if I even hear your name in this city, I'll finish what I started last night. And next time I won't stop at your operations. Real fear appeared in Morin's eyes. He understood. This wasn't a business threat. This was a promise. Am I clear? Morin nodded. Say it. You're clear. Capone gestured to his men. Get him out. As they dragged him out, Capone called after them. Morin. If anyone ever threatens my family again, anyone, I'll hold you personally responsible. Even if you're 1,000 miles away. You're the example. Remember that. Bugs Morin left Chicago that night and never returned. The North Side gang collapsed within a week, and the story of what happened when someone threatened Al Capone's son spread through the underworld like wildfire. Because power, everyone learned, could be taken. Territory could be lost, money could be stolen, but family was sacred, and the man who protected his family with that level of ferocity was not someone you crossed, ever. 3 days later, Al Capone drove to the Wisconsin estate, 70 miles north of Chicago. He'd called me, but Sonny didn't know he was coming. When the car pulled up, Sonny was playing in the yard with 2 guards watching. The moment Sonny saw the car, he dropped the ball and ran, arms outstretched, the puppy yapping alongside him. Papa, Sonny shouted, you came. Al Capone, the man who just made Chicago tremble, dropped to his knees and caught his son in a hug that lifted him off the ground. I promised, didn't I? Capone said, holding him tight, breathing in grass and sunshine and innocence. Sonny pulled back, hands on his father's cheeks. Are we safe now? The question broke something in Capone's chest. Yes, he said, meaning it with everything he had. We're safe now. Nobody's ever going to scare you again, I promise. Sonny grinned and threw his arms around his neck. I knew you'd fix it. Mama said you would. Over Sonny's shoulder, Capone saw me on the porch, hand pressed to her mouth, tears streaming. Their eyes met. Everything he'd done, everything he'd become. Everything he'd destroyed to keep this moment possible. Me nodded once. I know, I understand, thank you. Capone nodded back. Then he stood, Sonny in his arms, and carried him toward the house. Come on, soldier, your mama says there's ice cream in the kitchen. The best kind, Sonny said, already forgetting the fear. That night after Sonny was asleep, me found Al on the porch overlooking the lake. She sat beside him in silence. Finally, me spoke. Was it worth it? Capone thought about the warehouses burned, operations destroyed, war started, alliances broken, about the revenge that would come, the endless violence his actions had set in motion. Then he thought about Sonny upstairs, dreaming of baseball and ice cream, sleeping without fear. Yes, he said, I'd do it again, 1,000 times over. Me took his hand. I know what you did, what you became. I've always been this, the violence, the ruthlessness. I just usually have better reasons to hold it back. but you didn't hold it back, not for Sonny, never for Sonny. They sat in silence, watching the moonlight on the lake. Me thought about the man she'd married, the man who donated to orphanages and tipped waitresses $100, the man who'd stopped his car in a rainstorm to help an old woman change her tire, and the man who just destroyed an entire empire in less than a day because someone had scared his son. Both men were real, both men were true, and she loved them both. He asked me today if you were angry at him, me said softly. If he'd done something wrong. Capone's jaw tightened. What did you tell him? That you could never be angry at him, that you love him more than anything, that his papa is the strongest man I know, and that you'd never let anyone hurt us. You told him the truth, Capone said. Me looked at him. I don't know if what you did was brave or terrifying. Sometimes I think you're both. I'm whatever I need to be to keep you and Sonny safe. Everything else, the empire. The money, the power, it's all just armor, protection. Me leaned her head on his shoulder. I know, that's what scares me. Because in the end, that was the truth. Al Capone was a lot of things, a criminal, a killer, a ruthless businessman who'd built an empire on violence and fear. But before all of that, beneath all of that, he was a father. And there was no force on earth more powerful than a father protecting his child. The newspapers would report on the overnight collapse of the North Side Gang, the mysterious fires, the sudden shift in power. Historians would debate whether it was business or personal. Politicians would condemn it, rivals would fear it, but none of them would ever really understand, because they'd never held their child and promised to keep them safe. They'd never felt that particular terror when that promise was threatened. They'd never had to choose between empire and family. Al Capone had, and he'd made his choice in 18 hours. Chicago trembled, but Sonny Capone slept safely, and in the end that was all that mattered.